Discuss what kind of impact the committee's hearing today will have on voter sentiment. And the country is Rina Shah, CEO of Relic Strategies, who is familiar with House committee hearings, having served on 2 Republican congressional staffs, and also Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, a political consultant for NBS Strategies and a former Democratic legislative aide in the House. Rina, Nicole, thank you to both of you for giving us some time on this important day. Now, you both have worked in the House, so I'm sure you've been part of more hearings than you care to remember. As we head into today's possibly, likely, final hearing of the 1-6 committee, it is in many ways being billed as the closing argument in terms of coming before the midterms, their way of putting an exclamation point on what we've seen so far. Overall, before we know what's going to happen in a few hours, do you think the hearings have been productive and effective, and why do you think they haven't really moved the needle in terms of public perception? Rina, first to you.
You know, as a political strategist now for over the past decade, I've been concerned with impact, right? But when I was on Capitol Hill, that wasn't quite the case. And these members of Congress that sit on this select committee understand that impact isn't entirely the name of the game here. Sure, they'd like to have as great impact as possible, but a big point of these hearings is to create a historical record of what happened on that day. That day will go down in history infamously as the only day that our fellow citizens to date, and I hope it never happens again, have attacked our very own seat of democracy. Prior to this, it was the British who did that. So I think regardless of your political stripes, you can look at this public hearing today and reignite that intention. Look, it's been a very long summer. It's been a long year. And I do understand that my fellow Americans have limited attention spans. But it is so important, especially if this is the grand finale. We don't know if this committee is going to have more. That we understand and take in what happened to many of our fellow citizens who decided to show up on the west front of the Capitol that day. They were radicalized. They were told something that was not true. And who was responsible for sending them there? So over the past few hearings, we've heard that. But today, I'm very, very interested in hearing this new information that Congresswoman Lofgren says could be telling of the state of mind of the former President Trump, as well as was surprising to her. I think this is important, and I hope more Americans tune in. But I also know what the message of the right has been, and that's to call this a show trial. So I am concerned on many fronts about today, but I will be tuning in and expect others should as well.
And Nicole, your thoughts on how effective these have been so far?
I mean, look, bipartisanship is alive and well. I couldn't agree with what Rina said more. I wish more people were watching them. It's important to pay attention to this, but it really is a lot for the historical record. We need to make sure that this is documented. This is something that I think a lot of what the committee is doing is for the here and now, but just as much for future years and generations to have this on record, and so that there's a full understanding of what happened that day, where I'm sure both Rina and I both had friends that were working there, were scared that day. This was our first real true threat on democracy in a long time. But the next threat's coming in these midterm elections. This is not just about are Democrats going to hold the House and the Senate, which tends to be what a lot of the focus is about, but who's going to be in charge of these governor's mansions? Who's going to be the secretaries of state in these states as we move forward and need to have election integrity to ensure that our democracy keeps going forward?
And to that exact point, thank you for bringing that up. There was that chilling headline a few days ago that the majority of Republican candidates on the ballot right now for these midterms are election deniers, some of whom will literally be in charge of election apparatus in our country going forward if they win. And statistically, some of them are going to win. So thank you for pointing that out. That sets the stage for who knows what kind of midterm election, certainly for 2024. Let me ask you this, though. In the broad picture here, we do expect to learn more today about some of these Secret Service records. We could get new witness testimony. We could learn more about Trump's fundraising, the Stop the Steal that was supposed to go toward contesting election results may have instead gone toward his political PAC. We're going to get into all of that. These hearings are being produced by a high-ranking former TV executive, so they have something up their sleeve. But I wonder, in light of those poll numbers, when you see that the needle is not moving, Is it so much an issue of these hearings, perhaps the importance of getting on the record, we understand, but in terms of effectiveness, is it about effectiveness of the hearing, or is it just about that we're at a stage in American political life right now that people don't move from their opinion regardless of the facts and regardless of what the hearings show? That to me seems to be the larger issue here. Rina, what does it say about our democracy that public sentiment doesn't move even in the face of compelling evidence?
Well, certainly, I believe that here in this country, we have a representative democracy, but I get a lot of pushback from fellow Americans who believe we're a republic as well. Both can be true. This is indicative, this larger conversation that's happening in the public sphere about the efficacy of these public hearings, of even the necessity of them. It is indicative of the fact that we have such a civically illiterate population out there. And I say that because I think being critical of your country is one of the most patriotic things you can do. Now, can we make sort of larger predictions about what these hearings are going to do for 2024? I think we can go ahead and say that there are people who will be sitting on that dais today who do not want to see former President Trump run again in 2024. He is still the standard bearer for the Republican Party. Are these public hearings, the information that we have learned as a public from them, from this investigation, from these many months, is it going to disqualify former President Trump? That, of course, remains yet to be seen. But I think the thing that we are not talking about here, the larger elephant in the room, is that it has not yet been ruled out by our Department of Justice whether or not they will indict the former President Trump for any high crimes or really any codes or rules or any regulations that he may have broken. The investigations have revealed some really bombastic information, but this committee cannot indict the president. That has to be referred to the Department of Justice. And again, that has not been ruled out. So I think like any private citizen, a former president is subject to the rule of law. And I would like to see the Department of Justice act after this committee is done with its work.
And talking again a little bit about the midterms, we of course know that Republicans Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger will no longer won't be returning, of course, so this is kind of their final hurrah. But what do we see as the fortunes for Democrats heading into the midterms? Do we see people wanting to kind of bolster the Democratic Party because of these hearings? Do we see this having an effect on the elections and what people are hoping to see moving forward? Nicole, you can answer this one.
I mean, I don't think that this hearing is going to have a huge effect on the midterm elections for Congress. I don't think that there are members who are in tough races all across this country that are going to lean to and talk about these hearings as part of why their voters should be electing them. They're going to be focusing on other issues, the economy, the Dobbs decision. This is what they're going to be talking to their constituents or potential constituents about. But that does not take away from a broader picture they are leaning into, which is who do you want making these decisions? Do you want a party that is becoming increasingly dominated by election deniers and are pledging their allegiance to this former president more and more? Or because Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are the exceptions to the rule right now within the party in Congress? Or do you want the party of Democrats who will stand up to ensure our democracy goes forward, who are going to make sure that you're not having your freedom stripped away from you? So that's going to be the bigger picture the Democrats are painting, but they're not going to, I think, lean into the hearings per se in their rhetoric on the stump or their direct contact with voters.
And we will ultimately see how this committee's work ends and perhaps where Merrick Garland's work picks up, and if there will be an indictment or not. We do expect to learn a lot more today, reportedly, about how the former president, was warned of the brewing violence that day, and even in light of that, continued to stoke it. But we all know there are broader implications for democracy as well as a subtext of these hearings. I could talk to you the rest of the hour. They're telling me that we're out of time, but please come back, both of you, once you have a chance to chew over what happens in D.C. in a few hours from now. Rina and Nicole, appreciate your time and your insight. Thanks so much for being here on Morning Rush.
Thank you.